Hello everyone and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And coming up, President Donald Trump kicks off his visit to the Middle East and many rejoice in Israel as another hostage is released. We've got the latest on these and other stories coming up, but first, the headlines. Global stocks rebound as investors cheer the U.S.-China tariff suspension, hoping it marks a step back from a trade war. Tokyo closes over 1% higher while London and Paris and Frankfurt edge up in early trading. Chinese President Xi Jinping vows to boost Beijing's footprint in Latin America and the Caribbean with a $9 billion credit line and new infrastructure investment. The Kremlin rejects what it calls biased conclusions by the UN Aviation Council, which holds Russia responsible for the downing of Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 over Ukraine in 2014, killing all 298 passengers and the crew. A-list celebrity Kim Kardashian is set to testify in a Paris court a decade after masked men robbed her at gunpoint of millions of dollars worth of jewelry during Fashion Week in the French capital. And British retailer Marks & Spencer says personal data of some customers was stolen in a cyber attack that's crippled its online service, including sales, contactless payments, and recruiting operations. We begin with the latest from the Indian subcontinent, where in yet another show of India's war readiness against Pakistan-sponsored terrorism, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited a frontline Indian Air Force base near the border with Pakistan. With the S-400 missile defense system and the MiG-29 fighter jet in the background, the Prime Minister hailed the Indian Armed Forces for the successful execution of Operation Sindoor, during which India eliminated at least 100 terrorists in Pakistan and Pakistan-Occupied Kashmir. The Prime Minister repeated India's three-point doctrine against terror, adding that the world is now coming to terms with India's fresh outlook against terrorism.
पहला भारत पर आतंकी हमला हुआ तो हम अपने तरीके से अपनी शर्तों पर अपने समय पर जवाब देंगे। दूसरा, कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा। तीसरा, हम आतंक की सरपरस्त सरकार और आतंक के आकाओं को अलग अलग नहीं देखेंगे। दुनिया भी भारत के इस नए रूप को, इस नई व्यवस्था को समझते हुए ही आगे बढ़ रही है।
The visit came hours after Modi declared Operation Sindoor as India's standing policy against terror. In a warning to Pakistan, he said India's military response had only paused, not been called off, adding Islamabad's next move will decide what comes next.
मैं फिर दोहरा रहा हूं, हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है। आने वाले दिनों में हम पाकिस्तान के हर कदम को इस कसौटी पर मापेंगे कि वो क्या रवैया अपनाता है।
And as the Prime Minister doubled down on his zero tolerance for Pak-sponsored terror, India's war on terror pushes ahead in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, earlier today, security forces in Jammu and Kashmir launched a massive anti-terror operation in which 3 terrorists of the band Lashkar-e-Taiba were killed. And elsewhere in Jammu and Kashmir, posters were seen announcing a reward of 2 million rupees or over $23,000 for information on terrorists who massacred 26 tourists in Pahalgam last month. And in the backdrop of the successful Operation Sindoor, New Delhi's message to Islamabad is clear. Pakistan-sponsored terror will not be met with diplomacy, but with India's Operation Sindoor, which Prime Minister Modi says is still very much ongoing. And now we shift to the Middle East, where President Donald Trump is on a 4-day visit. And the president arrived in Saudi Arabia earlier today, kicking off a tour that focuses less on conflict in Gaza and Iran's nuclear program and more on striking big economic deals. Greeted by Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman upon arrival, President Trump is set to attend an investment conference in Riyadh, as well as hold talks on possible arms deals, energy cooperation, and trade investments. Now, President Trump's decision to bypass traditional Western allies to travel first to the Gulf states underscores their increasingly crucial geopolitical role, along with his own business relations in the region. In fact, 8 years ago, President Trump also chose Saudi Arabia for his first overseas trip as president, and when he memorably posed with a glowing orb and participated in a sword dance. Now, after Saudi Arabia, he'll visit Qatar on Wednesday and the United Arab Emirates on Thursday, two countries linked to major Trump Organization projects and central to regional diplomacy. In fact, Doha is a key mediator between Israel and Hamas, while the UAE is a critical security partner for Washington in the region. But what's raising eyebrows is the decision to leave Israel off the itinerary, sparking doubts in Tel Aviv over its place in Washington's priorities.
Well, the plan we haven't talked about, but we're not planning on stopping in Israel, but we will be doing it at some point, but not for this trip.
Now, Israel has been talking to the U.S. about the post-war future of Gaza, and officials reportedly say relations at the official level remain strong. But despite that, just ahead of the visit, Trump abruptly announced last week that the U.S. would stop bombing Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen, leading some to suggest that Israel was not the top priority for Washington.
I think he's going according to his policy, to his promise, to the election promises that America is first. And if everybody thought that Trump will take off, Israel interest, he's taking care of his own business, in thinking of America.
Meanwhile, the president has also indicated that he may travel on Thursday to Turkey for potential face-to-face talks between Russian President Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky on Moscow's war in Ukraine.
I think you may have a good result out of the Thursday meeting in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine. And I believe the two leaders were going to be there. I was thinking about flying over. I don't know where I'm going to be on Thursday. I've got so many meetings, but I was thinking about actually flying over there.
And now, as the president begins his Middle East visit, it's raising questions over America's changing Middle East priorities and who's in and who's out. After more than 19 months in Hamas captivity, Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander has now been reunited with his family. The 21-year-old Israeli soldier was serving at the Gaza border when he was captured by Hamas militants on October 7th of 2023. His release comes as part of efforts to reach a new ceasefire deal as U.S. President Donald Trump begins his 3-day visit to West Asia. While 58 hostages are said to still be in Hamas captivity, the ordeal for Eden Alexander now ends here. We have more on his harrowing story.
Oh my God! Oh, yes. Oh my God! Oh my God, Idan! Idan! אתה בחוץ, נשמה שלי, אתה בחוץ!
For 584 days, this mother had prayed for this moment while she battled fear and anxiety.
You look beautiful. I love you so much. אתה נראה מדהים.
Today, her happiness knows no bounds. Her beloved brave son has returned home. The Alexander family burst into a celebration with wide smiles and tears of joy rolling down their faces. This is 21-year-old Idan Alexander, the last living American hostage in Gaza who's now been released by Hamas after more than 19 months in captivity. The dual US-Israeli national was 19 years old when he was taken hostage during Hamas's unprecedented October 7, 2023 attack on Israel. He was born in Tel Aviv, after which his family moved to New Jersey in the United States. But Idan moved back to the homeland after graduating from high school in 2022. He enlisted in military service and was deployed near the Gaza Strip. On the day of the attack, his post came under attack and he was taken hostage. The All-American Kid, as his father affectionately calls him, then went through his worst nightmare. According to Israeli state media, Idan was subjected to severe torture, lengthy interrogations, and was confined to a tunnel with no access to daylight. Reports also say he was locked in a cage, his hands and feet shackled for a prolonged period. Like other hostages, he suffered from extreme food deprivation, and it's only in recent months, apparently in preparation for his release, that Hamas began providing him with more food. But there was a moment when Idan's family thought they had lost him. Over a month ago, Idan appeared in a video released by Hamas. Then, on April 15th, Hamas said it had lost contact with the group holding him as a result of an Israeli strike. It was Idan's grandmother who refused to give up hope. Grandma doesn't give up on her grandson, she was heard saying. Then, on May 11th, Hamas announced that he would be released.
I want to thank President Trump, Mr. Witkoff and Adam Borla for everything they did for the release of Eden, and with God's will may they continue to act for the release of all the hostages that are still there in Gaza, and we want to see all of them, until the very last one, back here in Israel.
Mr. Witkoff.
Now he's home and safe. He's under medical supervision and is being cared for.
We are thrilled by the return of Idan Alexander after so many days in captivity. The entire Israeli healthcare system stands ready to provide Idan and his family with the best medical and psychological treatment.
Idan Alexander's release comes amid efforts to reach a new ceasefire deal. He was freed just before US President Donald Trump began a 3-day West Asia visit. While the horror is over for him, the fate of the 58 remaining Israeli hostages in Gaza still hangs in the balance.
And it's like Groundhog Day all over again as U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth comes under scrutiny once again. This time the embattled Pentagon chief has been accused of plagiarism. The Daily Princetonian, the university's student newspaper at Princeton University, published an investigation claiming Hegseth's thesis written in 2003 during his senior year at the Ivy League institution contains multiple instances of uncredited material, sham paraphrasing, and verbatim copying. The newspaper consulted 3 plagiarism experts who reviewed the thesis without knowing the author's identity. They identified 8 significant passages they say violate Princeton's academic honesty regulations. One example involves Hegseth's description of President George W. Bush's reaction to the 9/11 attacks, which closely mirrors a passage from a 2001 Washington Post article without proper citation. While the experts agreed on the presence of uncredited material, they differed on the severity of the instances. Some described it as borderline, suggesting a mix of serious and minor plagiarism, while others dismissed it as poor writing and methodology. However, one of the experts argued that the unattributed copying violated university rules. In response to the allegations, Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell issued a statement denying any wrongdoing. He asserted that Hegseth's work had been thoroughly reviewed during his confirmation process and that these accusations are a fake story designed to distract from the administration's accomplishments. The statement reads in part, quote, "They found no plagiarism because there was no plagiarism," end quote. Princeton University has no set rules for addressing such issues after graduation. And now the allegations come at a time when Hegseth's tenure in the administration has already been marked by controversy, including accusations of sharing sensitive military information in private group chats. Now, following the Signal chat leak, President Trump reaffirmed his support for Hegseth. But now it's unclear if this latest accusation will see the cabinet secretary heading for the exits. Perhaps with this administration's relationship with universities, particularly Ivy League schools, this latest critique might be seen as a badge of honor. And finally, we end today with a look at an unforgettable train ride. It was a first-class diplomacy derailed by an economy-class conspiracy, quite literally. And at the center is none other than French President Emmanuel Macron. A short clip of him where he was seen making a quick hand movement was all that it took for a cocaine conspiracy to explode online. Along with Macron were British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, all accused of drug use on their way to a peace mission in Ukraine. Russia propagated it, only added more fuel to the fire, leading to global trolling. Here's the bizarre tale in detail.
Once upon a time, on a train bound for Kiev, 3 world leaders set off on a mission for peace. French President Emmanuel Macron, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz sat together inside a compartment with cameras rolling. Moments later, there was an explosion on the internet. A short clip went viral and nobody expected that it would be dissected, slowed down, zoomed in and misinterpreted on such a massive scale. Macron hastily reached out to a white small object in front of him lying on the table. In the next few hours, the video was captioned, alleging that the French president just picked up a bag of cocaine. Conspiracy theorists were doing their thing. People like US radio host Alex Jones didn't just sit back. The clip erupted across X, TikTok and Telegram channels, with some users accusing the leaders of drug use in broad daylight. And logic? It was found nowhere remotely in sight. Moscow's foreign ministry also amplified the controversy, calling Europe's future in the hands of drugged figures. Pictures taken by renowned global media outlets have clearly shown that the white object Macron picked up was a tissue. France was forced to respond to the scandal that was spiraling. Paris condemned it as fake news and pointed fingers at Russia. The presidency took to X and slammed Russia's alleged disinformation campaign. To shut down the mess on the internet, the Elysee posted a zoomed-in image of the object. With a mix of sarcasm and clarity, it wrote, "This is a tissue for blowing your nose." And along with that was another picture of the 3 leaders, captioned, "This is European unity to build peace." No drama, no scandal. It was just a tissue and not an issue. So yes, what went viral was not cocaine. France's foreign minister took a direct jab at Russian officials. He claimed Moscow is desperate to prevent peace in Ukraine, and also debunked some false claims that the footage was taken after the leaders met with Ukrainian President Zelensky. But in reality, it was filmed before, while they were en route to Kiev. Zelensky has long been a target of baseless drug use claims. They have been amplified by Russian officials and state television. And just like that, the twisted story ended. In this modern fairy tale, the villains don't wear cloaks. They tweet. And the magic is, truth gets blurred.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank all of you for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching.